Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh from Peru.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Hope everyone's doing well, inshallah. Barakallah fikum. MashaAllah. We're going to start in a minute. Just طيب السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. بارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خير for your patience. We've been off for some time. Again, this is kind of the the lifestyle. When usually if I go to UK, the difference is just too difficult. To 3 a.m., 4 a.m. it's a bit tough. In Canada, it's night, so it's usually when I'm in Canada, it's okay, inshallah. So, inshallah khair, we'll be continuing for next few weeks, and then we will finish, we'll finish this book, we don't give up. So, we reached the devil's deception with regarding to the ADHAN, the call to prayer. But before we start, let us just remind ourselves how the devil works, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, "Inna kayda shaytana kana da'ifa." Indeed, the plan of shaitan is weak. So, being weak doesn't mean that it's not very elaborate. It is weak as in actually a person can actually fight it off. But shaitan is just quite smart though. And he will attack you from places you are not even going to expect, as he has said. And shaitan, he has all the experience that a person can ask for. And one of the scholars used to say, I think it was a recent scholar, he said that if I were to hire, someone who doesn't give up, I would hire shaitan. Just looking at his work habits, he has very good work habits. He's not lazy. He doesn't give up. He works hard, right? He's a very strong worker, but he's very cunning. And subhanAllah, he works through the waswasa, and he lets us do the rest of the work. It is up to us to give him. It is up to us to obey what he says. It is up to us to actually move in the direction that he wants us to move. And by Allah, we do fall. We do fall into it. Okay, we do fall into it. All of us. كل بني آدم خطاء. Every son of Adam commits sins. Everyone. خير الخطائين التوابون. The best of those sinners is the one who makes tawbah. Okay, so can we say that we're going to be sinless? No. Are we going to continue sinning? Yeah. Do we give up? No. Do we learn? So maybe we could avoid the major sins, avoid some of the sins, maybe even to teach others to not fall into the same sins that we have fallen. It's also an important point to mention here. A very important point to mention here is that when you learn the traps of shaitan, it's also to teach your children not to fall into the same mistakes that maybe you have fallen. Sometimes we don't think about that. The people who call others, who do da'wah, who remind, but are they themselves holy, perfect? No. But sometimes with experience, we learn. That's why some of the best da'is are those who have had a past jahiliyyah. They have learned what are the problems, the difficulties. They themselves have gone through those mistakes, and they can sometimes warn so good against the deception of shaitan. And when you talk to your children, to the youth, maybe you are a teacher, maybe you have children, maybe you have family, maybe you're in charge of some group or something. It's always amazing and important to know how to warn them against why they might not know, especially the youth. We in our 40s, 50s have already gone and passed through some of these trials and tribulations. By the blessings of Allah, we pray to Allah to forgive us, but we're still here. They're young. They don't know the dangers of some of this stuff. Sometimes, you wish that you could just take time back and just be more protected, to protect yourself more from some of the mistakes that have been committed, some of the mistakes that you have made that maybe unwillingly you didn't know. We wish that. But sadly, we don't have that. We don't have that, that opportunity. And that's what's going to happen on the day of judgment. We're going to say, Allah, send us back so that we may work better righteousness. But it'll be too late. However, we hope, of course, in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us protection, to help us to protect us from the evil and to forgive us for our sins. And when we fall into these sins and the shaitan deceives us, we rely on the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Birahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Now, so let us look at an interesting thing here. The devil's deception with regards to the adhan. Now, what does the adhan have to do with the devil? Or what does the devil have to do with the adhan? Okay. So it says, an example is to add a musical rhythm to the adhan. Imam Malik disliked this very much, and so did other scholars, because it strips the adhan of the required reverence and makes it almost like singing. Another example is they mix Fajr adhan with other forms of dhikr, right? So, however, here we have to be a bit careful, because warattil al-Quran tartil, like tartil is beautiful recitation. We know the Sayyidina Sulaiman and Dawood. Okay, Dawood specifically used to sing hymns and beautiful remembrance. So I understand it's the opinion of Imam Malik, but here we have to be careful. Yes, some people start showing off. Some people, even with Quran, they start beautifying to such an extent that it's almost like, singing. But in prayer, when someone recites beautifully, we know what an amazing effect it has. It has an amazing effect. So there's a difference of opinion here. Of course, Ibn Qayyim, very strict in this matter, because people are probably going astray. Like when you see these like Quran competitions and Adhan competitions, and people are like, ooh, you know, it's like, yeah, you can see that this is maybe not the right thing to do. But yes, there's a question. 1 second. The Adhan recited by the Shia has additional verses includes, yes, there is. So they say, Hayya ala khayr al-amal, I think, and they say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah ashhadu anna Ali Waliullah. That's what they say. Ashhadu anna Ali Waliullah. Okay. So that's something that they add to the adhan, right? And that we have seen some people climbing on the minaret to remind people. Others recite the surah from the Quran loudly on the minaret. They prevent people from sleeping and confuse those praying at night, all of which are from the bad deeds. So in some countries, you'll find that people, including Malaysia, that they start reciting Quran before like Maghrib, I think, and certain times. It's nothing wrong with reciting Quran, but why is it associated before prayer, right? Some people get confused. There's difference of opinion here, but it's an important point to look. Like in Turkey, Malaysia, you'll have people just reciting Quran throughout the before the adhan in certain prayers, or making certain dhikr. I remember I was in I think in Juma, for example, when I was in Africa, you know, there was so much dhikr and so much recitation on Friday. And is it really needed? The adhan is to call people. The other question is that, is it from the sunnah? Did the Prophet ﷺ do that? No. Okay, that's one of the questions that usually we need to ask ourselves. Now, is like, we don't want to go to extremes. So is the beautifying of the voice wrong? Depends on the intention. If a person has a beautiful adhan, a beautiful call, it's beautiful. It resounds very, very nicely. Calls people to come. And sadly, sometimes some of the adhan are so, their voices is so not good that it like kind of puts you off, right? Allah is beautiful and loves beauty. A beautiful voice is something Allah, inshallah, would like. So again, we have to, as students of knowledge, we need to understand when we look at the evidence and the opinions of scholars with all the respect. Right? We respect them. We're not worthy of their shoes or to tie their shoes. But sometimes you have to understand the context of what's being said, right? So yeah, for example, it's not from the sunnah necessarily to recite all kinds of dhikr and to mix it with the adhan and to add all kinds of things and then to call the adhan and this and that. But a beautiful voice with a beautiful adhan to call people, as opposed to like a scary voice, because sometimes some people are really, really bad voices. But Allah orders us to recite in a beautiful way, right? So I would say that indeed the minaret and to call people to pray in a beautiful way, it is something that is probably good. As for bad intention and you're trying to show off or trying to, you know, some people like they overdo it, right? They overdo it. Then yes, this is bad. And this sister says there are quite a number of non-Muslims who are mesmerized by the adhan. Yes, indeed. I think it was Morgan Freeman who was trying to do it. And others, many people. Before I was Muslim, I remember very clearly, there was this show on Sunday, some kind of National Geographic. And they used to always show in the introduction part of the adhan, this muaddin climbing the minbar, the minaret. He's an African. I used to love to see it and to listen to it. I used to love it. I would just watch that part only. And I was just a child at that time. So I would say with the Quran, with the call to prayer, if you have bad intention, when you're trying to show off, you're trying to really overdo it, then yes, it's bad. If you just have a beautiful voice and your niyyah is for really fulfilling, right? Really fulfilling the call to prayer, then I would say that it is okay. Allah. Yes, it is Abdullah ibn Maktoum, and was preferred, was preferred, and even like Bilal. I believe when Bilal was, they said call Bilal because he had a very nice voice, even though he couldn't pronounce properly. But they said like who has a nicer voice, and they called Bilal. Okay, so indeed, it is because of the good voice. Or I think also with Quran recitation, the Prophet ﷺ would like to hear it from some of the voice of the Sahaba. Okay, so here we're learning a very important point. Just because, and I don't want this to sound bad, like we have to be very smart here, right? Just because a scholar says something doesn't mean that this is revelation, right? Just because you're reading a book doesn't mean that that's it, right? We're just like, look, sister brought an evidence here. We need to look again at the evidence, right? Before we just take anything. And there's a context and everything, but we learn this as students of knowledge to always look at the evidence before we look at the personality. Now, right, the devil's deception with regarding to performing salah, as-salah, right? So the devil is very smart, and here we're going to talk about waswasa. People washing their clothes, people having OCD, right? Some washing like in certain places. The companions never used to do this. In fact, they prayed while wearing clothes, from different places. They would cover themselves with anything. Sometimes they would take the clothes of the non-Muslims, right? So this compulsive disorder of washing is something that is from the waswas of shaitan. As a counselor, I would say that I deal with this a lot with people with waswasa. It's huge. OCD with clothing, OCD with regards to body, istinja, urine, going to the bathroom, obviously, making wudu, ghusl. There's a lot of OCD, a lot. So this is something that we have to be careful with because it can destroy someone's prayer, their salah, right? It can destroy their salah because it delays it. It makes them delay it and so on. Let's go down a bit. So this is called OCD. I believe OCD and waswas are very, very closely related. Let's go down. Okay. Yani, some people talk about like just water touching their clothes, right? And again, cleanliness means what? Like the Sahaba were full of dust. They would pray with their shoes on. They would pray with clothing that is not super everything. No, they're from the desert. Well, it doesn't mean that you don't have to wear good clothes. If you can, right? Everyone according to their ability, you should. It should not be looking dirty. But some people overdo it. And that's what we're talking about, even like with the adhan, right? Like some people overdo it. Some people overdo it. Okay, another phenomenon is, for example, pronouncing the intention to perform the prayer. This is something that is known in Malaysia. And they try to attribute this to the Shafi'i madhab, right? صلي ركعتين فرض الفجر لله سبحانه وتعالى. And then they're really struggling with saying takbir, Allah. And then they'll stop. Then they'll go back, oh, they're trying to get their niyyah there. Allahu Akbar. Imam has already finished Al-Fatiha. They're still struggling to get the niyyah. No, ya akhi, you came for salah, you already made the niyyah. You've already made the intention by coming to the masjid to pray your fard. Intention doesn't go like that. Like, yes, you should have intention. It's very important to have intention, but not to the point you're struggling like that, right? Then you have to let everyone know, like you're disturbing people. Like if you ever pray next to someone who does that, it's very disturbing. Because I'm coming there, I already made intention. It's very simple. So istaqimu, so sufufakum, right? Lurus lapangan saf, right? Everyone gets ready. Done. Saf, finish. Allahu Akbar. And then you start. Right? So this is, again, when you look at it, just very clear. Some people just overdo it. You have to have intention. Even if you make intention, make it in your head. You don't have to let everyone know what you are praying. That's what you're there for. Right? Others say Allahu Akbar, let's continue the prayer. Okay, they take too long. They miss the ruku. Right? Because they haven't pronounced the intention. Because the shaitan is delaying them. Don't tell me that, oh bro, I couldn't get the intention. Wait a second. You missed the rak'ah because you wanted to verbalize your intention. Can't you see that shaitan is making you miss your rak'ah? You missed your jama'ah. Why? Or people who pray the sunnah. The imam has started praying the fard and he starts praying the sunnah. But sunnah doesn't supersede the fard. You gotta understand that. The sunnah doesn't supersede the fard. The sunnah is after fard. And even you can pray after the fard. Right? You do not have to, when you walk in the masjid, the imam is already finishing Al-Fatiha and Fajr Salah, first rak'ah or second rak'ah. People come late and people are going to pray Sunnah, Rakatain, or Tahiyatul Masjid. And this is, shaitan can make you use something that is good. Praying Sunnah is good. Praying Tahiyatul Masjid is good. But he is making you pray it at the wrong time, which means it's bad. Right? It is bad. Now, so the Prophet ﷺ never, and the companions never had these issues. Abu Hazim once entered the masjid, so the devil whispered to him, why are you praying without wudu? So he said, you are not so keen on my well-being to give me such advice. Meaning, like that's a waswasa, right? Sometimes you pray, you go to pray, and all of a sudden you remember that, wait a second, I don't have wudu. But indeed you do usually, right? You're on wudu. You pray for, you're known to have wudu. I'm sure so many times it happens. You're walking towards iqamah, and all of a sudden your mind, like, do I have wudu? Do I not have wudu? It's not like you know for sure you have no wudu. It's like you are doubting, and now you're delaying. You're like, I don't know if I had. Did I break it? Did I not? What is the ruling? No, you have wudu. You go ahead and pray. Let's say you don't have wudu, but you don't know. No, inshallah, your prayer will be accepted. Because we take certainty over doubt. Okay, you know that you make wudu usually. You've had wudu for the last prayer or whenever you went last to the bathroom and you finished. So we take certainty, inshallah. Right? Now. Okay. Some people do not do nawafil because they say don't know the niyyah. Yeah, you just do niyyah for nafila. That's it. Right? To get qurba lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the nawafil. Now, so as the Imam says, by standing up to perform a prayer, you make your intention clear. There's no need to pronounce it. A man told Ibn Aqil, I sometimes wash a bird. I sometimes wash a bird, but then believe that I have not washed it. I say Allahu Akbar, but later think I have not said it. Ibn Aqil respond, do not perform prayer. It is not obligatory on you. Ibn Aqil companions asked him, how could you say this to them? And he replied, the Prophet said, the pen has been lifted from an insane person until he regains his sanity. He who is suffering from what this man is suffering is insane. An insane person are not required to perform prayers. Know that repeating the intention for prayers is caused by stupidity and ignorance. If a scholar were to enter a room and a person stands up for him out of respect and says, I intend to stand up out of respect for this scholar who has entered this gathering, then people would declare him to be an idiot, right? The action of standing up has made his intention clear. A point we have to mention here about Ibn Aqil, this is his opinion. Again, right? Very important lesson, brothers and sisters, right? That man is not insane. I would disagree here. Not that I'm at this level of Ibn Aqil, but to tell someone just because you don't know if you watched a bird or if you did say Allah Akbar or not, you don't supposed to pray. This is obviously, you can just say it's just his opinion, right? He was a bit strict. Of course he should pray, right? Because some people might be like, okay, well, the scholar said I don't have to pray. And just because, like, we all forget sometimes. No, we have to pray. But indeed, the pen is lifted from the majnoon, a person who is insane. And insane is not just forgetting whether you said Allah Akbar or not, okay, or whether you washed a bird or not, whatever that means. You understand? So again, we have to take things with a grain of salt. When any statement against a person is against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the established evidence, then obviously we reject that and accept the sunnah. Okay. Now, let's go down. Keep on. Now, deception of them regarding performing salah. Some of those performing prayer say Allahu Akbar, then wander off with their thoughts away from prayer. So the takbir is the entrance to the prayer. Okay, you cannot neglect it. Some people join the Imam late when only a bit is left before he bends for ruku. Instead of reciting a Fatiha, he reads the dua that is said at the start of prayer. This is from Iblis deception, because reading a Fatiha is obligatory. But reciting the dua is sunnah. You cannot put sunnah ahead of obligations, I said. Now, what if you miss al-Fatiha? It's okay. If you have time, but you're not reading it, that's a different story. But if you're just getting there and the Imam says, Allahu Akbar, you go for ruku, then you go Allahu Akbar and go for ruku, and you caught the salah. It is agreed upon that you catch the rak'ah if you caught the ruku. But you didn't recite al-Fatiha, that's okay, because you caught the ruku, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So go down, right? It's very important. Okay. So always prefer the fard over the sunnah, as they say here. As Ibn Qayyim says, by giving this example, he's trying to teach us the point that we should always prefer the Quran over the sunnah. I mean, the fard over the sunnah. Okay, the fard over the sunnah. Now, let's go down. Okay. Section 2, not performing sunnah. Iblis, so look at that. Now we're talking, before we said don't perform the sunnah, fard first. Put the sunnah on the side, the fard takes a precedence. Now we're talking about not performing, those who abandon the sunnah. So Iblis deceives some people, causing them not to perform many of the sunnah. Some used to pray congregational prayers, but not in the first rows. They say Allah only intended the nearness of the heart, not the physical nearness. Others do not put one hand on the other in prayer, saying, I do not want to show humility, of which my heart is empty. This is because of lack of knowledge. In Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet responded or said, if people knew what was in the adhan and the first row of the prayer and could only draw lots for it, they would draw lots. The Prophet also said, the best of men's rank in prayer are those in the front, and the worst is the back. As for putting one hand over the other in prayer, it is from the Sunnah. Putting one hand over the other, it is from the Sunnah. Okay. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu was once praying with his left hand over the right. Left over right. So the Prophet switched them around. So we see here that this is the Sunnah. The Prophet is not just an optional thing. Does it break your prayer if you put your hands down? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Some of the Malikis, they pray with their hands down. I don't like it because it resembles the Shia. The Shia pray with their hands down. Some of the Malikis pray with their hands down. But I just believe that because we see the hadith about the Prophet ﷺ and how he placed his hand, I believe that it's important to place your hand. Okay? The Shafis, the Hanbalis, the Hanafis all agree upon the hand. Where it's placed, that's a different story. But it is one over the other, the right over the left. Okay, so I prefer to keep it and not to put it down. Now, Ahmed ibn Hanbal was told that Ibn al-Mubarak said such and such. He replied, Ibn al-Mubarak did not come down from the heaven. Very important. Okay, this is exactly what we've been kind of learning today. That just because a scholar has said certain thing, there's no evidence, it doesn't matter. As Imam Ahmad said, Ibn al-Mubarak did not come down from heaven. Okay? So we have to look at the rules of Islam to understand that it's not linked to a person. The deen itself is the evidence. Okay? Now, Iblis may cause a person to overstress the shahada. Sometimes people stress the letter Dal. Okay, so like in the word al-maghdubi, right? Maghdubi, wala, right? Some people go, right, too much to this. It says to the point that discharging some saliva, right? So, like some people do it too much, right? Wala, people scream, meaning easy, you know. There has to be a balance. The people go beyond the requirement. They occupy themselves with the pronunciation instead of the comprehension and the meanings being read. Some people do something called takhalluf, which is like an exaggeration in the recitation in the makharij or the exits of the letters, right? So Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, right? They start like focus on the ayn. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, right? They really like stress. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka, right? They go walad, right? You can hear like some people are really pushing. Doesn't sound good, does it? Even though, yes, mashallah, you are makharij, the exits, the stress on the shadda, and everything is, mashallah, the qalqala, but it's not like, it's not normal, right? The Prophet recited normally, the Sahaba recited normally. It's like, you know, Quran and it's a Quran in Arabic. No. Uthman ibn Abi al-As said that the devil comes between me and my prayers and recitation, confusing me there. The Prophet ﷺ said that is a devil called Khinzab. If he affects you, then seek refuge in Allah from him and dry spittle on your left 3 times. So you turn to your left, don't spit, dry. It's like, right? Sa'udhu billahi shaitanir rajim. And he says, I did that and Allah took him away from me. Okay? Khinzab, that's his name, subhanAllah. So Iblis deceived many ignorant worshippers to make them think that worship was only to stand up and sit down, like bodily motions. Right? They focus on that and ignore the prayer. I've noticed that some people say salam while the Imam is saying it before completing the tashahhud. Right? Some people like the Imam says assalamu alaikum, and the people are like already assalamu alaikum right away, even before the Imam. No. Imam have to say to the right, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. When he says the second one, that's when you say your first salam. It's the most safe. Okay? It is the most safe. What I would like to say here, there's also in Salah, subhanAllah, some people are more preoccupied with how the others pray. And maybe you've seen it. Someone comes to you after Salah, Fard. He says, brother, I want to talk to you. You know, I saw you in prayer. You didn't do this properly, or you didn't lift your hands up. Or, okay, how did you see me? Where was your head? What were you thinking of? I've met so many times people will come and try to teach you. The question is, how did you see me from like 2 rows down, or like you were on the right side or on the left side? How did you see what mistake I was doing? Right? So this is something that is not right. If you see someone praying a sunnah, you're in the masjid, you notice a mistake. The Prophet himself saw that and corrected that man who was praying like a rooster, for example. Or the Prophet said, you know, and you pray again. He didn't pray and kept teaching her. But not like in Salah and Fard, right? Something that is not correct. Showing off in prayer, showing off. I think there was actually it's a joke that people use, but I think it was in a book that actually happened, where you know, some people came to the masjid, they saw some men praying, mashallah, and they started talking, and he heard them, and they said, mashallah, look at this guy, he's praying, wow, look how he's praying, mashallah, mashallah. And the man turned to them while he was praying and said, I'm also fasting today. Right? It's like during the salah, he's like, I'm fasting. Because he was so, you know, so infatuated with himself. You have to be careful, right? Shaitan is very smart. Shaitan is extremely smart and just messing our intentions. Praying is excessively at night. Iblis has deceived some worshippers to perform a lot of night prayers. Some of them pray the entire night, and they feel happier when performing night and duha prayers more than obligatory prayers. Some fall asleep right before Fajr and miss the obligatory prayer. Others wake up too lazy to work or sustain their families. Is it good to pray tahajjud? Yes. Some people exaggerate. Imagine praying the whole night, dedicating yourself when you're not working in the morning. You don't take care of your family. They're starving. And then, you know, the wife will come. Ahmed, come on, you have to go to work. We need food. He's like, I was praying the whole night, woman. You know, Allah will give us bread. Allah is not going to send bread down from the sky. You have to work for it. Right? As the Prophet said, لو كنتم تتوكلون على الله حق التوكل لرزقكم كما يرزق الطير. If you were to put your trust properly in Allah, He would have provided for you as He provides for the birds. They leave the nest empty, but they come back full. Key here is that they leave the nest. Allah doesn't just throw food down from the sky to them. So some people have this, you know, monk mindset where they feel like, I'm just going to pray the whole night, be this person who's just, you know, and then you wake up in the morning, can't do anything, you're tired, you missed the salah. That happens a lot in Ramadan. You see it in itikaf. People are praying and praying the whole night. Then they sleep a little bit before Fajr. They, man, waking them up. They miss, I've seen people miss saying Fajr in Ramadan because they prayed the whole night and they can't wake up and they're dead tired. So we're praying Jama'ah and they're snoring in the back, in the masjid. People try to wake them up and they're not waking up. Or they miss the khalas, even if they catch the salah, they miss the fard in Jama'ah. So it's not good. Not good. Now, let's go down. So the Prophet said, your body has a right over you. So wake up when it's appropriate and sleep when it's appropriate. He used to say, adhere to the moderate demeanor. Whoever arm wrestles this religion will lose. Meaning, if you're going to push too much, you will lose. You're not going to be able to do it. You won't be able to do more than just what Allah has told you to do. Right? The Prophet ﷺ saw a rope extended between two poles. He said, what is this rope? They said, it is a rope of Zainab. When she feels tired, she hangs on to it. The Prophet ﷺ said, untie the rope. You should work actively until you feel tired, then you should rest. Look at that. Look at the moderation of the Prophet ﷺ, subhanAllah. You would think that he would be impressed. Wow, mashallah, she's doing so much ibadah. Yahi, the Prophet ﷺ was the best worshipper. Who can be better than him? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And look what he's saying. He's saying, don't do that. If you're tired, rest. You can do up to the point that you're tired. Khalas, when you feel you're tired, rest. The Prophet ﷺ said, if one of you feels sleepy, then he should lie down until he's no longer sleepy. Because if he prays while he is sleepy, he might curse himself instead of seeking forgiveness. Indeed, you lose your track. Like some people I've seen, I had to lift people from sujood because they were snoring in sujood. You put your head down to sujood and he's sleeping already. He's so tired that, just saying Subhana Rabbi al-A'la 3 times in sujood and he's out, he's sleeping. Right? You need sleep. It re-energizes a person. When a person repels it, it might harm his body and mind. So we seek refuge with Allah from ignorance, right? If someone says, very important here, pay attention, but we were informed that members of the Salaf, they used to pray at night and spend so much time, and Imam Al-Shafi'i used to read the Quran in the one night 3 times, and those individuals were gradual in doing so. They made certainty not to miss their prayers. They were strong. They slept during the day. They did not eat as much as we do. They worked. It worked for them. The Prophet stayed awake an entire night. It was never reported. There was no report where the Prophet never slept. Okay, his sunnah is more worthy of being followed than just some salaf. And I'm not saying some salaf just like that. We're talking about the salaf are the heavyweights. But any salaf, according or in comparison to the Prophet ﷺ, is sorry, man, we cannot. As much as we love them, we cannot. It's the Prophet ﷺ. So we got to be careful. Some of those falling for Iblis's deception try to insinuate to others that they were up praying last night. So they would say, so-and-so, the Adhan giver gave Adhan on time. Like, so what? Well, just to show that you were there, gotta be careful with showing off. Now, yeah, it's Qiyam and Taraweeh, something when you're so tired, you start losing it. That's why Taraweeh and Qiyam, they're sunnah even in Ramadan. Yes, very, very, but praying Fajr with a clear mind is more ajr in Ramadan than praying the night prayer in Ramadan. Because Fajr is always going to be more important. Okay? Devil's deception regarding praying only in the masjid. Iblis deceives some people to pray all prayers, including the sunnah, only in the masjid. Okay, only in the masjid. Prophet ﷺ said the best prayer a person can perform is at his home, except for obligatory prayer. So the sunnahs actually, the sunnah of the sunnahs is to pray them in the house. The Prophet ﷺ said, do not make your houses as graves, meaning where you cannot pray. Okay, so pray at your home as well. Now, let's go down. Okay. Some people cry with people around them. This might happen involuntarily. However, it would be considered showing off if a person was able to hide his crying but did not. You find a lot of times that certain imams, they recite, and it's like almost in every prayer, it's like they have to cry. Yeah, mashallah, if you have such a soft heart, that's beautiful. But if you can control it, it's better not to cry. It's better not to cry, to hold it. Okay? Abu Wa'il used to cry heavily during his prayer at home. If someone were to give him the entire world in return for letting people see him while crying, he would not agree. He wouldn't agree. And whenever Ayyub al-Shaytani felt like he was about to cry, he would get up and leave. Right? They're so worried about people saying, wow, mashallah, look at this person. They're so pious or righteous and so on. But we have to be careful. Astaghfirullah. May Allah forgive us. Sometimes we don't realize the mistakes that we do. Okay? Iblis also deceives some people and focus on praying during the day and night without trying to mend their internal faults, which is more deserving of their intention. So sometimes people just pray, but they don't fix the problems that they have. Okay, recitation of the Quran. So some people read too fast and they don't pronounce. Now, not everyone knows and can pronounce properly, but some people, they just do it fast. Like, it's sad to see that even Arabs who are born with the Arabic language are making very big mistakes when reciting the Quran. Very big mistakes. And they rush. Surah Al-Fatiha is, according to like the Shafi method, for example, if you make a mistake in Al-Fatiha, or you don't do your best in it, it can invalidate your prayer. Surah Al-Fatiha is very important to recite it correctly. Some people are like, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. He put some effort into it, right? So be careful, not so fast. Some reciters climb on the minbar at night to recite 1 or 2 chapters from the Quran with loud voices. They harm people by not letting them sleep, and they show off. This is basically Ibn al-Qayyim probably seeing this in his area. Now, Ibn al-Qayyim is in Damascus in Syria. Okay, so he sees this in Syria at this time. Others choose to recite while the adhan is being called. Okay, no, you should stop. When the adhan is being called, you have to respond to the adhan. That is the best thing to do at that time. Now, if you're finishing an ayah or something, it's a different story, right? But when the adhan is being called, you stop and you listen and respond to the adhan. So Ibn al-Qayyim says, one of the strangest things I've seen was a man, he led them in Fajr prayer. I imagine Ibn al-Qayyim is there. He's being led by another man. SubhanAllah. After completing the prayer, he turned around, recited the last 2 surahs of the Quran, then began to say dua that is said upon completing recitation of the entire Quran. He did this so people know that he completed reciting the Quran. This was not the way of the Salaf. They used to hide their worship. Rabbi Ibn Huthaym's deeds were all in secret. He used to cover his copy of the Quran if someone entered upon him while recitation. Ahmed ibn Hanbal used to recite a lot without anyone knowing when he finished reciting the entire Quran, right? So you got to be careful with your good deeds. It's better to hide them than to show off. May Allah help us to be sincere in that. Look at the way they were so careful about their good deeds, right? I can imagine. What's interesting is, subhanAllah, that Ibn al-Qayyim is there, and this man, like, what kind of person, how much knowledge does he have to lead Ibn al-Qayyim in prayer? Like, I'm really mesmerized by this. How do they decide who leads the salah? Or another way to look at it is that Ibn al-Qayyim was so humble that he would not offer himself to lead the salah or to step ahead. You know, when people decide to pray together, maybe it's no assigned imam. Okay, you go first. No, you go, right? So Ibn Qayyim, with all his knowledge, he is being led by another person who's making a bid'ah, showing people that he has finished the Quran. Now, the devil's deception regarding fasting. So he deceived some to fast continuously. This is only permissible if a person does not fast the days which were forbidden from fasting. Yet, there's still two problems with doing so. One is that it will cause him to become too weak to work for his family or to suffice his wife sexually. Okay. In both Bukhari and Muslim, there's a tradition where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, it's a very important point here because this has been asked by many times by people. For example, they ask, well, you know, if a woman doesn't fulfill a man, the man is like, he wants to be intimate, and the woman doesn't do it. We know that, you know, there's the curse of Allah, right? So a lot of times the women be like, yeah, it's all about the man, all about the man. It's clearly here, the Prophet ﷺ says, very clear, it's very important to understand this hadith. Your wife has a right upon you, meaning that if you don't fulfill the right, you are sinful. So the question was, okay, so if a woman doesn't fulfill her husband's right, she is sinful, indeed. And then they asked, but what if a man doesn't fulfill? And then some people are like, no, you know, it's not about that. No, it is. Because if your wife has a right upon you, then basically, if you don't fulfill that right, then you are sinful. Okay, you are sinful. And Ibn al-Qayyim here mentions to gain sustenance for his family and to suffice his wife sexually. Right? So here we have to understand that a man to please his wife in intimacy is a obligation. It is a responsibility that if he doesn't do it, he doesn't fulfill her right according to the words of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, I wanted to bring this up because yesterday or today someone asked me this question. And they were like saying it's all about man and just man, their fulfillment of the man. No, it is not. It's very wrong. Now, okay, let's go down. Abdullah bin Amr radiallahu anh said, the Prophet ﷺ met me once and said, have I not been informed that you pray all night and that you say, I will pray all night and fast during the day? Abdullah replied, yes, mashallah. I have said so. The Prophet ﷺ said, fast and break your fast, offer prayers a bit, and also sleep at night. It's sufficient for you to fast 3 days in a month, and the reward of a good deed is multiplied 10 times. So it will be like fasting throughout the year. I said, O Messenger of Allah, I have the strength to do more than that. The Prophet ﷺ said, then fast like the fasting of Prophet Dawood alayhi salam, and do not fast more than that. I replied, I have the power to do better than that. The Prophet said, nothing is better than that. Meaning fast, break your fast. Fast, break your fast. Fast, break your fast. Now, طيب. Let's stop here. The devil's deception regarding the intention to fast. Okay, Ramadan is coming, inshallah, in a few months. So we're very close, alhamdulillah. So it's we need to prepare. May Allah forgive us and accept. Inshallah, Allahumma balighna Ramadan. Oh Allah, give us the glad tidings of Ramadan. Now, طيب, Jazakallah khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you, inshallah. And hopefully everyone's good. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh ya Syekh.
Waalaikumsalam.